Get me some water, woman. And be quick about it." His voice cut through the marble halls like a whip. The maid flinched but obeyed, her eyes lowered, her hands trembling. To him, she was invisible, just another servant in his empire of gold. Edward Langston, a self-made millionaire, believed loyalty could be bought. Until the day he put it to the test. When he faked a terminal illness, his mansion grew cold, his children vanished, his so-called friends disappeared, and his wife smiled only for the inheritance she thought was coming. But one person stayed. The same woman he had mocked for years, the maid he never saw as human. What he didn't know was that her kindness would be the one thing to expose the ugliness of everyone else. Have you ever been ignored by someone who thought they were better than you? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was a Sunday morning in the Langston mansion, a palace of glass and gold perched high above the city. Edward Langston, a man whose name once stood for power, wealth, and control, sat at the grand dining table reading the financial section like he always did. At 62, he was sharp, arrogant, and proud of every scar from the battles he fought in the business world. To him, money wasn't just success. It was proof that he mattered. Around him, his family drifted like ghosts. His wife, Clara, spent her days shopping and scrolling through social media. His two sons, Tyler and James, were too busy chasing luxury cars and shallow fame to visit unless they needed something. To Edward, that was normal. He believed love could be measured in gifts, not presents. He had built a world so large, he didn't even notice how empty it had become. The only person who truly noticed him anymore was Rosa, the maid, a quiet black woman in her 50s who had worked for the Langstons for nearly a decade. She cleaned his floors, cooked his meals, and endured his insults. He never said her name right, never thanked her. In his eyes, she was just another piece of furniture in his mansion, something useful but beneath him. One morning, as Edward overheard his sons laughing about how they couldn't wait for his will to be finalized, something inside him shifted. For the first time, he saw through the fake smiles, the hollow affection. He realized he wasn't loved, only needed. That night, a thought began to grow. What if he disappeared? What if he could see, just once, who truly cared when the money didn't matter? The plan formed quietly. He would pretend to be sick. Terminally, and watch from the shadows as his loved ones revealed their true colors. What would you do if you discovered the people closest to you were only around for what you had, not who you were? Edward's plan began the next week. He called a family meeting in the lavish living room, chandeliers glinting above them, the air heavy with perfume and pretense. With a shaky voice, he announced the lie he had carefully rehearsed. He was sick. Terminally sick. The doctors had given him only months to live. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, almost instantly, faces changed. His wife gasped dramatically, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. His sons looked at each other, not with grief but calculation. They asked questions, not about his health, but about the company, the accounts, the estate. Edward noticed every flicker, every fake tear. Over the next days, the mansion grew colder. Meals arrived late. Conversations became shorter. His wife started sleeping in the guest room, complaining about needing space. The sons stopped visiting altogether, leaving behind only their polite text messages, always ending with, "Hope you're feeling better. Dad, love you." Rosa, however, didn't change. She still came every morning before sunrise, humming softly as she polished the floors. She still cooked his favorite soup, the one no one else cared to remember. When she saw his hands tremble, part of his act, she placed a gentle hand over his and said, "Don't worry, Mr. Langston, you'll be fine." Her voice carried something no one else had given him in years: sincerity. Edward began watching her quietly. He noticed how she worked even when her back ached, how she skipped breaks to check on him, and how she prayed for him when she thought no one was watching. The same woman he had once mocked for her skin, her accent, her simplicity. She was the only one who still saw him as a man, not a wallet. As the days passed, he decided to push the test further. He pretended his condition was worsening. Coughing fits, fainting spells, whispers of, "It won't be long now." His wife barely looked up from her phone. His sons didn't even call. But Rosa stayed. She started bringing him herbal remedies from her own home, cooked meals with extra care, and read aloud to him when he claimed he couldn't sleep. Then came the day that changed everything. Edward collapsed in the hallway, part of his act, to see who would come running. His wife screamed but didn't touch him, too afraid to ruin her dress. His sons arrived half an hour later, annoyed that their day had been interrupted. Rosa, however, dropped everything. She rushed to his side, tears in her eyes, lifting his head into her lap. Her trembling hands wiped his forehead as she whispered, "Stay with me, Mr. Langston, please." In that moment, Edward felt something break inside him, guilt, shame, and an emotion he hadn't felt in decades, gratitude. But things were about to get even darker. His family's indifference turned to greed. They started making quiet calls to lawyers, whispering about wills and inheritance. He overheard his wife laughing on the phone about the fresh start she'd have once he was gone. The mask of his perfect life was crumbling, and for the first time, he saw the rot beneath it. Late one night, Rosa found him sitting by the fireplace, tears in his eyes. "Sir, is something wrong?" she asked softly. He wanted to tell her everything, that he wasn't sick, that it was all a lie. But he stopped himself. Not yet. He needed to see just how far his family's cruelty would go, and what he was about to witness next would change everything he believed about wealth, love, and humanity itself. The storm hit on a Friday night. The power flickered, thunder rumbled over the hills, and the mansion's long corridors seemed darker than ever. Edward sat alone in his study, pretending to be weaker than he truly was. His family had gone to a charity gala that evening, a charity for cancer research. Ironically, one they used as a photo opportunity. Only Rosa remained behind, quietly cleaning as the rain lashed against the windows. When the lightning struck, it tripped the power entirely. The house went black. Edward stumbled from his chair, calling for help. His voice echoed through the halls, desperate, shaking. "Clara? Tyler? James?" Silence. Only Rosa's hurried footsteps answered. She found him on the floor, clutching his chest, half acting, half shaken by his own guilt. "I'll call for help," she cried, running toward the landline. But when she reached it, the phone was dead. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her old cell phone and tried calling emergency services herself, holding him close while whispering prayers under her breath. Then, through the doorway, Edward saw movement, his wife, returning early. She stepped into the room with her sons behind her, their faces pale from the candlelight. Instead of rushing to him, they froze. "Mom," one of them whispered, "if he dies now, do we call the lawyer first or the ambulance?" Edward's breath caught. The words hit harder than any illness ever could. He realized they weren't just waiting for him to die, they were counting on it. Rosa turned on them, her voice fierce, trembling with anger. "How can you speak like that?" "He's your father!" Clara rolled her eyes. "He's been nothing but cruel to everyone, including you." "Why pretend to care?" Rosa glared at her, tears spilling. "Because that's what love is. You care even when they don't deserve it." Edward couldn't keep the act any longer. He sat up suddenly, pulling off the blanket. The room froze. His wife gasped. His sons stepped back. The color drained from their faces. "You wanted to see me die," he said quietly, his voice cold. "Well, congratulations. Now you can live with the truth instead." For the first time in years, he saw fear, not respect, in their eyes. The mighty millionaire, once the master of control, had turned the tables. Rosa stood beside him, trembling, uncertain if she'd done right or wrong by helping him reveal the truth. He looked at her, voice softening. "You were the only one who saw me, the only one who cared." Rosa lowered her head. "We're all human, sir. Some just forget that." The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. Viewers, if you were in Rosa's place, standing in that moment of truth, would you forgive him or walk away? Tell us in the comments. The next morning, sunlight poured through the broken clouds, casting a golden glow across the Langston estate. But the mansion itself felt emptier than ever. Word spread quickly about what had happened. The fake illness, the family's greed, the maid's compassion. It all unraveled like a story too cruel to be fiction. Edward called one last family meeting. The pride that once held him up was gone, replaced by shame. "I built this family on money," he said, "and destroyed it with the same. But Rosa stayed when everyone else left. She showed me real humanity." He revealed a new will. His family would have enough, but a foundation in Rosa's name would help the ignored and disrespected. Rosa didn't want his money. She forgave him and left quietly. For the first time, Edward understood that wealth means nothing without kindness and grace.